Hello and welcome to what I believe is week 3. You're going to have 2 exercises this week. The first one is going to be called Simple Properties. It's going to expand upon what we did last week in terms of making symbols, animating those symbols, and in this case doing some things to them to alter their appearance as they animate. Along the way we're going to learn a few things about Flash, and layers and all sorts of things. The second exercise is going to be what I consider kind of a totally different way of animating, what is considered more frame-by-frame animation. The idea behind this is that you're animating, as the sort of name states, frame by frame. We're going to be doing a simple jumping jack routine. And using that to sort of create, again, some simple animation. Just before we sort of start this simple properties exercise, I want to sort of state, if I haven't already, that these are the basis for from which your projects are going to sort of stem from. We need some real, I guess we'll call it a base to move off of, to understand how to make some simple animations before we get to kind of making a short movie. So keep that in mind. Keep this in mind in terms of this being, again, the basis from which larger and more complex, both in terms of narrative and story, as well as technical complexity as we move forward into the projects. So I'm going to be reading off my simple properties step by step. Hopefully both the step-by-steps as well as the videos have been helpful. I'm going to skip to step 4. I've already opened Flash. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating several graphics and then animating them. Along the way we're going to get to know the layers, which is up here. It's always good to separate things out on layers so that you can sort of affect the animation of that particular symbol without affecting others. What it says here, it says double click on the layer 1 in the timeline and name it red square. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to call this red square. These are simply labels. They're simply just sort of labeling that layer there. At the top where it says we have various menus, insert a new symbol. So I'm going to insert a new symbol. I'm going to name that red square as well. And I'm going to make sure that that's a graphic. Okay. Now, we pop over into the library where we're going to sort of make this symbol. I probably said this in the first video. Make sure, or last week's video, make sure you know where you're at. The library looks surprisingly similar to the actual scene. A lot of times people accidentally animate in the library. We don't want to do that. At least we don't want to do that right now. We're going to do that with movie clips. But we want to sort of keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to go over to the rectangle tool in my toolbox. It looks like this. If you roll over it, it should introduce itself as a rectangle. And then it says click on the fill color on the bottom of the toolbox and choose a red. So I'm going to choose a red. It says click and draw the square, and we can make a perfect square by holding down Shift on our keyboard. So I'm just going to make a little red square there. Okay. So I have a simple first graphic over here in the library. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to get over to my directions here. Now, just like we did last week, we're going to click back to scene 1. It's very important we click back to that scene 1. Don't start doing what you're doing until you're back in scene 1. One way to recognize where you're at, you can look right here on the left. You'll either see your graphic, so I'm just going to show you real quick. Here I'm in my graphic. Okay, I can also tell because this area is quite a bit larger. Okay, when I pop over to my scene, I have the sort of defined stage areas. Okay, so if it looks like a big white space, you might be in the library. Okay. Now it says take the graphic from the library called red square and drop it on the stage in the bottom left. So I'm going to take it, grab it, and pop it down there. I'm going to use my black selection tool to sort of position that. Okay. Now it says move up to frame 60 in the timeline and control click on that frame. I'm going to sort of cheat and right click. It's similar. And I am going to insert a frame. And then it says choose any frame in between 1 and 60, and you can either control click or right click and create motion tween. Okay, we did this last week. This should be a review. With the black selection tool, and I'm on step 20 here, grab the red square and move it to the top stage right. I need to make sure I'm on that frame 60 when I do this. Remember, we're denoting with this keyframe that the red box is going to be here. And then when I'm up to frame 60, I can simply move it there. Okay. And we can sort of tell that that's working or not working. Looks to be working. And we're going to do the last little bit, which is kind of the new part to this. It says click on any frame between 1 and 60 again. Okay. And over here we're going to look at the properties window. The properties window is a little bit different. It basically shows us that we can sort of change some things in relation to potentially the tween or the symbol. Depends on what you have selected at that moment. I have selected the tween, so you'll see when I click on the actual tween, different properties sort of come up here. Now, it says on step 22 here, choose your properties tab, which is likely connected to your library. And under rotation, choose 3 times. So I can click here and choose 3 times. I'm sort of stating that that's going to happen on this tween, so it should happen as I move that across. Okay. I'm going to save this. I've already saved this as David Luke _ simple properties. Remember, you're putting your name there. And I'm just going to quickly test this movie to make sure it is working. So I'm bringing it up here. And yes, in fact, it is rotating 3 times and playing over and over again. Now, the next part of this exercise for you, and I'm going to do it fairly quickly, is to create 2 more symbols. One's going to be called the purple square and one's going to be called the green square, and animate those in a similar way. So I'm going to do this a little more quickly than I would do the first one because we've done it several times now, counting last week's exercise. So I'm going to insert, step 24, create basically 2 new layers, a purple square and a green square. So I'm going to go and whoops, too many. One thing I want you to notice, and just because I saw it here, you can see this teeny tiny icon next to the red square. That indicates that there's a tween on that layer. This is just, nothing's happened on that layer yet, so it's just this sort of regular layer icon. Now it says insert 2 separate symbols, make one a purple square and one a green square. You're going to repeat steps basically 1 through 10. So I'm going to insert a new symbol. Purple square. I can see that I'm on purple square right there. I'm going to go to my rectangle box. I'm going to choose a purple. Good enough. I'm going to insert a new symbol, and I'm going to get a green square. So again, go back to those first steps if you need help making these particular symbols. But at this point I have a green square, a purple square, and a red square. So on my purple square, as you probably would imagine, we're going to animate these separately. So it says we already did step 26, insert 2 separate symbols, create motion tweens across the same 60 frames on their respective layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm on that first keyframe of the purple square. I'm going to grab purple square and I'm going to put it right down here. One thing on this sort of second part, since we extended the red square frame out to 60, the other layers are going to go all the way out there as well. So the one step we get to skip is inserting the frame to extend it out. I can simply right click, create the motion tween, go to that frame 60 and move that there. Okay. We're going to rotate these as well, so I'm going to click on that, go to my properties and hit 3 times, and now we have that. And the last one, and I have plenty of time left in my video, so I'll do this one a little slower in case we want to review. I'm going to go to green square, first keyframe. I'm going to grab green square. I'll put this one in the center. You can see these little lines. They're trying to line these up. These aren't exactly the same size, so they are not going to line up perfectly. You'll see that it extends. My symbols all extend out to frame 60. I'm going to right click on this green square layer. I'm going to create the motion tween. I'm going to go to that frame 60, move it up here, and then last but not least, rotate that 3 times. So we should see, and I can align mine up so they actually sort of end up next to each other. You should see, and we'll take a look, some rotating squares. Now, one thing to note in relation to the layers, which we learned here, is that this is a hierarchy. Those of you who have worked with Photoshop before know that layers in Photoshop, if the layer's on top, it's on top. So I'm going to sort of quick put these right here. If you see, if I grab green square and put it in the middle, it goes to the middle. If I put it back here, it goes all the way to the back. I don't really care what order you have these in, but I just want you to note for future reference and future animating that that is the case. Okay. So that's simple properties. Later in the semester, we're going to get into some other properties. You'll see some things like ease, that has to do with how fast and slow it eases into the animation. You can change the direction. You can orient to a path, which we're going to do, I believe, next week. Change the sort of direction. But that is a simple properties change, and it could be useful in lots of different ways as we head forward. Okay, so that's the first video. Like I said, we are going to get into the frame-by-frame animation here in a minute. So I'll see you in the next video.